Hello, and welcome to This Week in Tech, the Sounds Amazing podcast. My name is Ben Arnold. I'm the Executive Director and Industry Analyst for Consumer Technology at the NPD Group. And I'm joined today by Ashley McCann, who's a Director here at the NPD Group and our Audio Analyst. Ashley, how are you today?
Hey, Ben. I'm great. How are you?
I'm awesome. So today's topic is Sounds Amazing, and there have been a lot of interesting developments happening in the audio space, particularly in home theater, with everything that's going on with people watching TV and spending so many hours streaming. We wanted to get into what's happening with sound bars. So I'm just going to start it, Ashley. What's been happening with sound bars this year?
So, yeah, tons going on in that whole home entertainment piece of it, right? We saw really great TV sales, but soundbars have been really strong as part of that. And we had, strong double-digit growth from soundbars the first half of the year. It's starting to mellow out a little bit in Q3. It's more like it was flat, but flat versus last year. So we've really maintained that level of sales and that level of demand that we had from 2020, because we're not way down, we're flat, which means we're still way up from 2019. So we've got some really strong sales continuing in the soundbar category.
And you mentioned that sales a little more recently, the sales are strong compared to last year. A little more recently, we've seen things kind of, as you say, mellow out. What's happening with the mellowing out of soundbar sales?
So Q3 last year was really strong, which means we're pretty much hitting those same numbers again this year, whereas as we were leading into it in the first half of the year, soundbars started off a little bit slower in 2020. Versus 2021. So we had a really strong first half, and now it's starting to mellow out a little bit. Part of that is TV sales are starting to mellow out. These are two categories that really go together, two peas in a pod with soundbars and TVs, and soundbars are heavily attached to TVs. Outside of flat panel mounts and installation services, soundbars are right up there in terms of attached with TVs. So as those TV sales start to level back out, we see the same thing in soundbars, right? And what's interesting about it is TV sales, big screen TV sales are still seeing a little bit of growth, a little bit stronger sales there than the smaller screens. And that's great news for soundbars because that's where we tend to see higher attach rates. We tend to see soundbars attaching better to larger TVs, more premium TVs. And so as we get that continued growth in those larger screens, 65-inch, 70-inch, 85-inch, all those bigger screens, that's what's going to help us continue to drive more soundbar sales going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the story around big screens this year I think has been really important. And one thing that we've observed is what's happening with pricing in TVs, right? And that's kind of been the big challenge to driving more unit sales is higher average selling prices compared to last year. There's some segments of TVs where prices are 40 or 50% higher than they were last year. So, I mean, are we starting to see some pricing movement in soundbars? Is it kind of moving in sync with TVs, or is there something else driving it?
So soundbar ASPs are up from last year, but not necessarily for the same reason TV ASPs are up, right? So we've got higher ASPs in TV. We've got less promotions in TVs. Soundbars, we're still promoting about the same as what we were last year. Very similar level of discounting, very similar amount of our soundbar volume is being sold at a promoted price. So it's not quite like TVs in that way, but we are seeing the prices creep higher because there's some shift in the brand mix and the quality of the soundbars that we're selling. And we were selling a lot more entry-level soundbars a year ago than we are now. So when we look at those soundbar numbers and we see those ASPs increasing, it's not necessarily promotionally driven as much as it's driven by a shift in the types of products that we're selling within the category. And part of that shift in the quality comes back to Dolby Atmos and the changes that we're seeing within that. So that's becoming a bigger piece of the soundbar market, and we're seeing some of that volume. There's been a ton of product introductions in that space in the last year or 2 years. So we've got a lot of stuff coming in at some lower price points, making it much easier for consumers to pick those up and get involved in that. And we're talking a lot about that whole home, that surround sound type of experience without the surround sound type speakers, just coming from one place. So it's becoming something that's easier for consumers to understand and easier for consumers to afford. But our Atmos ASPs are actually pretty flat from last year because, again, the product mix. We've got still a lot of strong products and product introductions coming from the high end. So while it is creeping down into lower price points, making it more easily accessible, we still have very strong premium Atmos products that are continuing to drive that piece of the market. So again, with that overall soundbar shift, we've got higher ASPs. As we shift a little bit more towards Atmos, we shift a little bit more towards the non-entry-level brands and some of those slightly higher price points. So a lot of different pricing dynamics within soundbars.
Absolutely, and I love hearing about Atmos and hearing that some of the pricing movement is due to innovation, right? That consumers are stepping into some more feature-laden products. Sound right now I feel like is hot. Everybody's talking about kind of next-gen sound, 3D sound. So that's really great to hear. How does soundbars sort of compare with what else is going on in the home theater? I mean, with receivers and home speakers, I mean, are those categories kind of moving also with soundbars, or are they going a different way?
So I think the general sense over the last year or so is we want things that sound amazing. So our soundbars are improving, but we saw really strong growth on home speakers and receivers, and some of those more legacy categories when we're talking about home entertainment. So home speakers had really strong growth. It's again starting to level out. Part of what was driving home speakers was, being stuck at home and building out that home entertainment center and that home entertainment setup, but also some broader distribution. Some brands and manufacturers moving into some different retail locations really helped catapult that. So the overall trend here at home entertainment is shifting towards that amazing sound.
That's really great to hear, and I'm so happy that the home theater market is developing in this way, that we've got new technology and innovation that are really, driving the experience for all the content that we're consuming. What a great story. Ashley, I want to thank you for joining the podcast. Again, I'm Ben Arnold. This has been This Week in Tech. Sounds amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in.